Guess who's back? It's Bubba G. And Bubba G is teaching Bible basics for all those who want to know, but especially those to the nunda, because you must learn. In the last video, we saw Paul. Remember? Paul was converted. Yes, Jesus came to him, and he was blind. Knocked him off the horse. But then he got his sight back. Ananias, the Lord said, Ananias, you go and give him his sight. This is the man. He's going to preach the gospel to the Gentiles. Yes, and his name was changed from Saul to Paul, because he was a new man. Yes, he was killing Christians before, but now he's preaching the gospel. That's what happens when the Lord comes to you. Everything changes. Yes, but Paul had some issues. He had problems because first he's killing the Christians. Now he's preaching the gospel. People were confused. Who was this man? Well, he wasn't the one killing the Christians. Now look at him. Now he's in the church. He's in the temple. He's in the synagogue. So in this video, we going to see what happens with Paul after he is converted. Where you at, Bubba G? I'm in the book of Acts. Chapter 21, verse 27. Let's read. But just when the 7 days were about to come to an end, some Jews from the province of Asia saw Paul in the temple. They stirred up the whole crowd and grabbed Paul. People of Israel, they shouted, help! This is the man who goes everywhere teaching everyone against the people of Israel. Let me back up. Help! This is the man who goes everywhere teaching everyone against the people of Israel, the law of Moses, and this temple. And now he has even brought some Gentiles into the temple and defiled this whole place, this holy place. They said this because they had seen Trophimus from Ephesus with Paul in the city, and they thought that Paul had taken him into the temple. So they didn't like this. See, because the law was for the Jews, and now you got these foreigners coming in here. Ooh, they didn't like that. Verse 30, confusion spread through the whole city, and the people all ran together, grabbed Paul, and dragged him out of the temple. Wow. And once the temple doors were closed, the mob was trying to kill Paul, when a report was sent up to the commander of the Roman troops that all of Jerusalem was rioting. At once the commander took some officers and soldiers and rushed down to the crowd. When the people saw him with the soldiers, they stopped beating Paul. The commander went over to Paul, arrested him, and ordered him to be bound with 2 chains. Then he asked, who is this man? What has he done? Verse 34, some in the crowd shouted one thing, others something else. There was such confusion that the commander could not find out exactly what had happened. So he ordered his men to take Paul up into the fort. They got as far as the steps with him, and then the soldiers had to carry him because the mob was so wild. They were all coming after him and screaming, kill him. Okay, verse 37. As the soldiers were about to take Paul into the fort, he spoke to the commander. May I say something to you? That's Paul talking. You speak Greek, do you? The commander asked. Then you are not the Egyptian fellow who some time ago started a revolution and led 4,000 armed terrorists out into the desert. Paul answered, I am a Jew, born in Tarsus in Cilicia, a citizen of an important city. Please let me speak to the people. The commander gave him permission, so Paul stood on the steps and motioned with his hand for the people to be silent. When they were quiet, Paul spoke to them in Hebrew. My fellow Jews, listen to me as I make my defense before you. So Paul is about to give his testimony to the people of what happened to him. Let's keep reading. I make my defense before you. When they heard him speak to them in Hebrew, they became even quieter, and Paul went on. I am a Jew, born in Tarsus in Cilicia, but brought up here in Jerusalem as a student of Gamaliel. I received strict instruction in the law of our ancestors, and was just as dedicated to God as are all of you who are here today. I persecuted to the death the people who followed this way. I arrested men and women and threw them into prison. The high priest and the whole council can prove that I am telling you the truth. I received from them letters written to fellow Jews in Damascus. So I went there to arrest these people and bring them back in chains to Jerusalem to be punished. 6. This is chapter 20. This is Acts chapter 22, verse 6. As I was traveling and coming near Damascus, about midday, a bright light from the sky flashed suddenly around me. I fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to me, Saul, Saul, why did you persecute me? Who are you, Lord? I asked. I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you persecute, he said to me. The men with me saw the light, but did not hear the voice of the one who was speaking to me. I asked, what shall I do, Lord? The Lord said to me, get up and go into Damascus, and there you will be told everything that God has determined for you to do. I was blind because of the bright light, and so my companions took me by the hand and led me into Damascus. In that city was a man named Ananias, a religious man who obeyed our law and was highly respected by all the Jews living there. He came to me, stood by me, and said, Brother Saul, see again. At that very moment, I saw again and looked at him. He said, the God of our ancestors has chosen you to know his will, to see his righteous servant, and to hear him speaking with his own voice. For you will be a witness for him to tell everyone what you have seen and heard. And now, why wait any longer? Get up and be baptized and have your sins washed away by praying to him. Wow. Let's keep reading. I went back to Jerusalem, and while I was praying in the temple, I had a vision in which I saw the Lord. As he said to me, hurry and leave Jerusalem quickly, because the people here will not accept your witness about me. Lord, I answered, they know very well that I went to the synagogue and arrested and beat those who believed in you. And when your witness Stephen was put to death, I myself was there, approving of his murder and taking care of the cloaks of his murderers. Go, the Lord said to me, for I will send you far away to the Gentiles. The people listened to Paul until he said this, but then they started shouting at the top of their voices, away with him, kill him. He is not fit to live. They were screaming, waving their clothes and throwing dust up in the air. The Roman commander ordered his men to take Paul into the fort, and he told them to whip him in order to find out why the Jews were screaming like this against him. But when they had tied him up to be whipped, Paul said to the officer standing there, "Is it lawful for you to whip a Roman citizen who hasn't even been tried for any crime?" When the officer heard this, he went to the commander and asked him, "What are you doing? That man is a Roman citizen." So the commander went to Paul and asked him, "Tell me, are you a Roman citizen?" "Yes," answered Paul. The commander said, "I became one by paying a large amount of money." "But I am by birth," Paul answered. At once, the men who were going to question Paul drew back from him, and the commander was frightened when he realized that Paul was a Roman citizen and that he had put him in chains. So what do we see here? We see Jesus came to Paul, converted him, blinded him, said, "You are the next one to preach. You're going to go to the Gentiles, though. You're going to go to the Gentiles. Leave these people. It's not safe for you here. I'm going to send you out, and you're going to preach my message to the Gentiles." Yes, and that's what Paul was trying to tell the people. He brought the Gentile into the temple. They didn't like it. When he mentioned the Gentile again, they didn't like it. It wasn't their way. But God has a new way, and it was to preach the gospel to the Gentiles. Yes.